We'll see.
Yes.
Go ahead.
How did you get the volunteers? Did you seek them out, or did they come to you?
Both, absolutely. But that's another thing. I mean, like I said, in the beginning, we were making, literally, with just a couple people, there were just a few of us there in the beginning, we were making thousands of phone calls. We would make 1,000 phone calls for a single meet and greet, and 20 people would show up. But of those 20 people, there were usually at least a couple who'd be willing to help out. And so that's kind of where it started, and it snowballed. And then some people we were able to identify very quickly. Others came on board later in the campaign. Some came to us. Some we sought out. There was also, of course, a gubernatorial race this year. And we knew after endorsement, those volunteers eventually were going to kind of have to choose a candidate to help, because it's really tough with the time commitment to work for a lot of campaigns. And so, you know, I would find someone I liked and say, you know, hey, you should come and help us out. So, and I did that before the gubernatorial endorsement, hoping to maybe, shh, don't tell Emma or Seifert that, Kay? So, go ahead.
This may be kind of a too personal question, but I know that after you help somebody win and you've worked real hard and you've worked with them, you kind of expect them that after they win that they will do certain things. And I saw the article in the Star Tribune last week, Kravac votes all over the map, and that he's not a member of the Bachman study group. And it might be too personal, but are there certain things that you kind of expected from your candidate when he won that he would do? And you know, do you separate yourself from that at all? Or?
That's a fair question, and it's not too personal. I'm an open book, but I would say no. I think I'm comfortable. I'm certainly keeping a close eye. I watch the votes he takes. I watch what he does, but I'm also, and I know that I would get booed down in some crowds for saying this. Maybe here, I don't know, but I am pragmatic. And I understand that Chip is the congressman for the 8th district. And it does tend to be a DFL district. And there may be votes that he feels compelled to take based on the needs of his constituents that I might not love. I don't know. But I'd be comfortable with that if I saw that happen. At the same time, there are, of course, guiding principles that are non-negotiable. And I don't believe that Chip would ever go against those guiding principles. I do believe that Chip's integrity would not let him do that. So I'm very comfortable. Go ahead.
The age range of the volunteers that you had in the campaign?
Well, that's a great question. All over the map. In fact, one of my favorite pictures, of course, is of my 7-year-old licking envelopes to go out. And then, of course, you know, we had an 80-year-old man who was extremely active. He was one of our captains. All over the map. All over the map.
Go ahead. I was really impressed when you said that Chip showed up at that union event where Oberstar was the keynote speaker, knowing that unions are so left-leaning and that their bureaucracy donates to the Democrats. How did he handle that? How did he attack that whole issue?
Well, the beauty of it, you're right. The union bureaucracies are very left-leaning, contribute to Democrat candidates. I mean, my husband's part of the nurses union. We get their slate of candidates every time around. But the beautiful thing is the union members are not that way. That's not the case. In fact, the ArcelorMittal mine, it's the Menorca mine, they actually, for their union endorsement of a candidate, they had a lot of the younger miners there who don't just follow that union line. And in fact, for that endorsement, the final vote was 25 to 28. They were that close to endorsing Chip as a union. So the reality is, he just talked to the union members. So that's how he handled that. Go ahead.
How did you do your, I mean, one of the persistent problem we have in the Republican Party are identifying our Republicans
Yes.
for the later get out the vote. And it seems like we don't really ever get it done, so we're still identifying Republicans when we're doing the get out the vote, and it never really gets updated.
Yes. And I will tell you that I think that that is still a significant problem that needs to be dealt with.
How did you deal with it in the 8th, which is,
We dealt with it by, we had our captains certainly did some voter ID. We did not rely on the party structure necessarily. Some BPOUs function better than others, we all know that. And some of the BPOUs did an okay job with that. Some of our captains did a phenomenal job with that. And we also had to rely on micro-targeting. We had to rely on sort of a larger analysis of the district where we would be likely to find more votes and do a more blanket approach in those areas.
okay, so
we-
how did you micro-target it?
I
Be
did not.
specific.
We
Joey did,
we
who
worked
did?
with a great firm
Okay.
out of DC actually. They did all of our mail programs. They came up with our target audience for that, and then we used those same numbers and that same list for our targeting for GOTV.
Was it from what magazines they, or subscriptions or donations?
You know, there's
of other
Andy would
things?
know better than me, but there's all kinds of statistical analysis that goes into these micro-targeting.
I did our micro-targeting, and the way it works is consumer data is widely available. What you purchase and your purchasing habits is just widely available. So what we'll do is we'll call 1,200 people and ask them any question, ranging from, do you like Nike or Reebok, or are you Bachman or Clark or Kravac or Oberstar? And so when we get a large enough sample of who we know is going to support Jim Oberstar and Chip Kravac, then we look at their spending habits and their consumer behaviors. And then we put it through a program called SPSS, which is made by IBM, and we say, computer, we know that these people like Jim Oberstar, we know these are the traits they have in common. Now go out and find everybody else based off their spending habits, 80% of the qualities that are the same. And then we assume that they're Oberstar or Kravac voters. Then we can match their vote history to it because that's available at the Secretary of State. So then we look at the 1 of 4s, 2 of 4s, which means you vote 1 in every 4 election, 2 of every 4 election, or 4 of 4 of every election. And then we know based off a simple formula how many times we need to contact you via mail, phone, email, things like that. So like your average 2 of 4 voter, if we call you 7 times, we'll maximize your turnout. So in Republican Minnesota, you'll get about a 13% larger gain if you contact those people 7 times. If you contact them 8 times, you get a 13% gain. 9
Okay.
times, 13%, so you stop at 7. So that's a quick summary of
We
And
GOTV.
although let me say, Jean, this is what, I mean, from my personal experience, what I would say is this is one of the